In 1969, there was a young engineer named David Breedlove who had a job in Silicon Valley. He had a young family and a house in Menlo Park, which is in the heart of the current Silicon Valley. At the time, he was considering moving to a different location, to a smaller town. At the time, thousands of professional workers like him were leaving large cities to move to smaller cities because large cities in the 70s were struggling. There was high level of crime, high level of pollution, and from the economic point of view, the change in career opportunities was not that large. Mr. Breedlove was considering moving to Visalia, which is a city about 200 miles to the east in the California Central Valley. At the time, it seemed a perfectly reasonable career choice. In fact, thousands of people like him were making the same choice. If you fast forward 30 years and you look at the labor market of Menlo Park today and the labor market of Visalia today, they are completely different. Menlo Park, on one end, has increased the share of workers with a college degree or a master's degree in significant ways. It's in the middle of one of the most important global centers for innovation. In fact, it's the most important cluster for computer science. It's the most important cluster for semiconductor. It's one of the most important science for life science. On the other hand, Visalia has taken a completely different trajectory. Today, Visalia is a community with low level of schooling. Only 1 in 10 workers has a college degree. And the type of jobs and careers that are available in a place like Visalia are completely different from the type of jobs and careers that are available in Menlo Park. This example illustrates the diverging fortunes of American cities and the role that schooling plays in determining those diverging fortunes. Locations like Menlo Park, with a large share of workers that are highly educated with master's degrees or PhDs, and a high share of employers that are very innovative, have been growing in terms of wages, earnings, incomes, and career opportunities. While cities like Visalia, which in the 1970s didn't look all that different, have taken a very different trajectory. And today, they offer a very different set of careers with much lower earnings, much lower incomes. In this lecture, we'll pick up from where we left, and we'll learn what type of new jobs were created in those successful cities. I think a good example of the transformation that I'm talking about is the city of Boston. Look at Boston in the 1970s and even in the 1980s, it had a large share of manufacturing jobs and an economy that was with weak labor demand and low growth in earnings and incomes. But Boston also had a very strong human capital base. Boston is, of course, home to some of the most important universities in the world, Harvard, MIT, as well as many others. There are 56 institutions of higher education in the Boston metropolitan area. Boston, even in 1970s, 1980s, had a very large share of workers with a college degree. And so in the 90s and in 2000, the local economy of Boston transformed itself in profound ways. And now an important part of the tradable sector jobs in Boston come from life science research and finance. And these two industries have been increasing the demand for labor in the cities and has resulted in increase in wages, earnings, and income in the metro area. I think that the Boston example exemplifies a more general lesson, that over the past 2 decades, the importance of human capital for cities has increased, in fact, has even accelerated. A small group of star cities has emerged, and those star cities have experienced much stronger labor demand growth than other cities. And this much stronger labor demand growth has resulted in faster income growth. This is true for all workers, but it's particularly true for workers with college degrees and master degrees. On the other hand, it also has resulted in growing housing costs and rents, and therefore growing cost of living. What makes star cities so different from the rest? There are two factors. The first and most important factor is they have a well-educated labor force. They have a share of workers with a college degree that is above 40%. And the second factor is they have a high share of employers in the broadly defined innovation sector. So high tech, of course, but also life science, pharmaceutical, parts of finance, part of entertainment,